Welcome to Mind Research Rewired. We unveil scientific truths to transform confusion into clear thinking. Unlock a sharper, more effective you based on proven research. Subscribe now and elevate your life.
Okay, so imagine voluntarily leaving a super safe mid-six-figure executive job at age 55.
Right.
You literally decide to work 80 hours a week on a startup, you take a massive pay cut, and somehow, you end up measurably, scientifically happier than you have ever been in your entire life.
It sounds completely crazy, but yeah, it's real.
Today we're looking at why that actually happens and how you can steal their psychological playbook to survive your own venture. Welcome to the deep dive.
It really is the ultimate paradox of building a business, isn't it? Like, the numbers on your financial dashboard go down, but the invisible metrics of human flourishing just go completely off the charts.
Exactly. And for all of you ambitious founders tuning in right now, whether you're dealing with the chaos of building a brand from the ground up, or maybe managing a highly complex technical build, or just trying to navigate the absolute madness of business strategy.
Which is a lot.
It's so much.
Yeah.
But consider this a mandatory audit of your mindset. We're going to figure out what actually makes the volatile, sleep-deprived founder journey worth it.
And we're doing that by looking at this really fascinating 2017 study from the Journal of Business Venturing. It's titled Late Career Entrepreneurship, Income and Quality of Life.
A T title.
I know, very academic. But it relies on this heavy-duty data set called the English Longitudinal Study of Aging, LSA for short.
Which, that begs the immediate question, right? Why are we looking at a demographic of professionals aged 50 to 67?
Right, yeah.
Because if we're trying to elevate our thinking as, high-growth founders, shouldn't we be looking at the 20-somethings coding in their dorm rooms?
Well, that is the standard archetype, sure, but analyzing late career professionals gives us a much, much cleaner data set for understanding true motivation.
How so?
Because these individuals, they've already played the corporate game. They know exactly what safety, a matched 401k, and a predictable salary actually look like.
Ah, okay, so they aren't just naive.
Exactly. When they voluntarily abandon all that stability to launch a business, they're providing this pure, unfiltered look at the actual mechanics of entrepreneurial reward. Like, they have everything to lose, and they leap anyway.
I love that. So we are extracting the hardcore, battle-tested wisdom from veteran professionals to help you, the listener, figure out if you're optimizing your startup for the right metrics.
Spot on.
But let's jump straight into the deep end here, because the baseline finding of this study feels completely counterintuitive.
Yeah, the data basically shows that when these late career individuals make the transition from waged employment to entrepreneurship, they take a significant, measurable reduction in their income.
Wait, I have to hit pause on that.
Go for it.
If we're talking about building a venture, isn't the entire premise to eventually build massive wealth?
That's the narrative, yeah.
Right. We're constantly told the goal is the exit, the IPO, the big acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
Why on earth would we take inspiration from a demographic that deliberately chooses a path where they become poorer?
It really challenges the very foundation of how we view economic motivation. For decades, traditional economic models have really struggled to explain entrepreneurship.
Because it's so irrational.
Basically, take the 2006 employment choice model by Levesque and Maniti, for example. That framework operated on the assumption of homo economicus, this idea that humans are purely rational agents who only choose employment types to maximize their lifetime monetary returns.
Meaning, under that traditional logic, a 60-year-old should literally never start a business because they simply don't have, a 30-year runway for a startup to compound into a unicorn.
Exactly. The pure math just says, stay in your safe job and collect your checks.
But the reality is, they are starting businesses in record numbers.
Right. And this study proves that rational people will willingly trade immediate cash for a totally different kind of currency entirely.
Which is what?
In behavioral economics, they call it non-monetary utility.
Okay, let's ground that in the physical reality of the founder journey today for everyone listening.
Yeah, let's do it.
Think about the sheer grit required to secure seed funding, or even just a non-dilutive grant for an unproven startup.
It's brutal.
It is. You are eating ramen, you are bleeding your savings dry, and for months, sometimes years, you're taking a massive financial hit compared to what you could be making as, say, a senior engineer or a marketing director at a ethane company.
Oh, totally. The expected monetary utility is actually quite low in those early years.
Yeah.
Honestly, if your drive was purely financial, you would quit after the third VC rejection. I mean, you really would. This older demographic definitively proves that the expected cash isn't the actual engine keeping you in the game.
So what is the engine then? I mean, if these founders are bleeding cash, what is this non-monetary utility actually paying out in?
Well, it pays out in the form of a massive, quantifiable spike in their quality of life.
Really?
Yeah, and the researchers didn't just casually ask them if they were happy. They used a rigorously validated psychological instrument called the CASP-19 scale.
Walk us through how that actually works, because I got to be honest, quality of life sounds like a very subjective, squishy term to throw around in a rigorous study.
I get that, but it's surprisingly rigorous. So the CASP-19 is a 19-item metric that measures 4 critical domains of human flourishing.
Okay, what are they?
Control, autonomy, self-realization, and pleasure.
Got it.
And it asks participants to rate specific statements. So, for example, a control statement might be, I feel that what happens to me is out of my control, and they measure the inverse of that.
Ah, I see.
Or a self-realization statement might look at whether they truly feel their life has meaning and purpose on a daily basis.
And what did the CASP-19 scores actually show for these lead career founders?
It showed that even as their bank account shrank, their overall quality of life across those 4 domains spiked dramatically compared to their peers who stayed in the corporate world.
Wow, so they're essentially buying their psychological freedom by sacrificing their salary.
That's a great way to put it. And to understand the mechanics of why that trade-off feels so good, we really have to look at the psychological framework anchoring this whole study, which is self-determination theory.
Right, I'm definitely familiar with this, but let's break down the actual mechanism for the audience. Why does self-determination theory override the intense stress of losing a steady paycheck?
So self-determination theory posits that human beings have these fundamental long-term psychological needs that absolutely must be met for us to function optimally.
And those needs are?
Autonomy, competence, and relatedness. It argues that true well-being isn't just about circumstantial perks. It's about deep fulfillment.
It's basically the difference between relying on a sudden venture capital injection versus reaching actual sustainable profitability.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Right. Like a year-end corporate bonus is a VC injection. It feels incredible for about a month, but it burns off, and you're left with the exact same structural problems. Autonomy, on the other hand, is profitability. It's a self-sustaining psychological engine that just generates its own energy over time.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. Yeah, the corporate job provides the VC injection of a salary, but it so often starves the profitability of your autonomy.
But I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second, though.
Okay, bring it on.
Let's say you're a 55-year-old executive, or honestly, even a 32-year-old mid-level manager. You hate your boss, you're constantly micromanaged, your autonomy is literally zero.
Sounds awful.
It is. But instead of taking the massive, terrifying risk of starting a company, dealing with cap tables, figuring out payroll, all that stress, why not just job hop? Go to a competitor, negotiate a 15% salary bump, and get a fresh start without the absolute chaos of entrepreneurship. Doesn't just changing your environment solve that psychological deficit?
See, the researchers anticipated that exact counterargument.
Oh, really?
Yes. They needed to isolate whether the act of starting a business caused the happiness or if simply quitting a bad job was the trigger.
That makes sense.
So to figure this out, they used a very heavy-duty statistical technique called propensity score matching.
Wait, I'm stuck on this. How do you even measure that with observational data? It's not like you can just clone a founder, put one in a startup and one in a new corporate job, and see who wins, right?
Well, propensity score matching is statistically the next best thing to cloning, actually.
Seriously.
Yeah, it eliminates self-selection bias. The researchers looked at the vast ELSA dataset and created a level playing field by matching an individual who started a business with a nearly identical individual who just switched to a new organizational job.
Oh, wow. So they're literally pairing up statistical twins.
Exactly. They matched them on baseline wealth, baseline health, marital status, education level, and even their previous happiness levels.
Okay, so we have a perfect apples-to-apples comparison here. The founder versus the job hopper. What happens when the dust actually settles?
Well, the job hoppers behaved exactly as traditional economic models would predict.
Meaning they made more money.
Right. They got an increase in income, they got the big salary bump, but And this is the crux of the entire study. The entrepreneurs had a significantly higher increase in their quality of life.
That is wild. The job switch brought cash, but the startup brought autonomy and control that just completely eclipsed the financial loss.
Exactly. The corporate job hopper basically traded one gilded cage for a slightly larger one. The entrepreneur built their own house.
Let me synthesize this for everyone listening, because I want to map this directly to the reality of building a product today.
Yeah, let's make it concrete.
Imagine you're building an innovative apparel company. You are constantly balancing deeply creative, high-fashion apparel design with highly technical fabric functionality.
Which is incredibly hard to do.
It is. It requires intense precision and vision. Now, you could take a high-paying job as a creative director at a massive legacy sportswear brand. That's the job hopping route, right?
Right, and you'd have more resources, a massive budget, zero risk.
You would make a fantastic salary.
Yeah.
But you would lose the ultimate autonomy to make those precision creative choices.
Yep, 100%.
A board of directors would water down your designs to appeal to the lowest common denominator. A supply chain manager would force you to use cheaper, non-technical fabrics just to save 3 cents a unit.
And it crushes your soul a little bit.
It really does.
Yeah.
Building your own brand gives you the control and the self-realization that a corporate salary simply cannot buy. You own the vision.
And that feeling of ownership maps directly to the need for competence within self-determination theory.
Right.
Because when you're the one successfully steering the ship, when your technical design works perfectly, specifically because you refuse to compromise, man, the psychological reward hits a much, much deeper neural pathway than a direct deposit ever could.
That is so powerful. But let's address a major assumption that I think a lot of listeners might have right now.
Okay, what is it?
When we picture a 60-something leaving their corporate job to, quote-unquote, start a business, the stereotype is usually a phased retirement, right?
Oh, right, yeah.
It's the executive who becomes a consultant, works maybe 10 hours a week, and takes Zoom calls from a golf course. I mean, if that's the case, of course, their quality of life went up. They're practically retired.
It's a completely logical assumption, but the data completely obliterates it.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The researchers interacted the transition to entrepreneurship with the change in weekly working hours.
And what did they find?
The improvement in quality of life was actually greatest among the individuals who increased their weekly working hours after starting their business.
Wait, you're saying the people who were the happiest were the ones who were working more hours than they did in their corporate jobs?
Statistically, yes. It completely debunks the idea of a phased withdrawal into retirement. They are not working less. They are working much, much harder.
How is that even biologically possible? I mean, if I'm working 80 hours a week, my adrenal system is usually fried. I'm exhausted.
It comes back to those subdimensions of the CHP-19 scale we talked about earlier. When the researchers isolated the variables, they found that the highest driver of this happiness was the self-realization metric.
So it's about purpose.
Exactly. When you are building something that is entirely yours, working 80 hours a week doesn't feel like a prison sentence.
Because it's the difference between draining labor and life-giving creation.
Yes.
Like working 80 hours a week trying to make a faceless corporation slightly more profitable leads to severe burnout.
Yeah.
You have no agency. But if you're working 80 hours a week to breathe life into a vision that you created, a product that you designed from scratch, that energy is reciprocal. It feeds you.
And you're no longer subject to all that negative social interference.
What do you mean by that?
Well, in the corporate world, a massive amount of your cognitive load goes into just navigating office politics or dealing with ageist organizational practices or just fighting for permission to execute your own ideas.
Oh man, the friction of just trying to get things done.
Yes. When you remove that friction, the work itself becomes the reward because it's a pure manifestation of your own competence.
This is such a massive paradigm shift. But as you know, we do not just talk about theory here.
Never.
We are in the business of rewiring mindsets so you can execute at a higher level. We really need to bridge the gap between this incredible data and the reality of your day-to-day grind as a founder. Let's transition into how you actually apply this today.
Well, if we know unequivocally that non-monetary utility, specifically control, autonomy, and self-realization, is the actual engine of your resilience, then you have to ruthlessly optimize for it.
Okay, so here we go. Tactical action number 1, the autonomy audit.
Let's do it.
I want you to look at your calendar for the next 48 hours. Have you inadvertently built a startup that is really just a more stressful version of the corporate job you left?
Honestly, this happens constantly. Founders leave a bureaucracy to find freedom, and then they slowly build a new prison for themselves, complete with a much worse boss, their own anxiety.
Yeah. Are you spending 80% of your week managing investor relations or mediating co-founder disputes or drowning in cap table drama instead of shipping the product you actually care about?
Right, the stuff that gives you life.
Exactly. So here is the action. Cancel, delegate, or automate 2 things this week that drain your autonomy. Reclaim your time to focus on the high-level strategy that fulfills your biological need for control. You have to give yourself permission to be the visionary again, not just the exhausted operator.
That is a critical audit. And I'd say tactical action number 2 is what I would call the self-realization check.
I like the sound of that.
So think back to our apparel design metaphor. When you're mapping out your key performance indicators for the next quarter, do not just optimize for immediate revenue if it heavily compromises your core vision.
Ooh, that is controversial. That goes against almost all standard startup advice, which is usually, revenue cures all evils.
Yeah. Well, revenue keeps the lights on, sure. But if you trade your creative autonomy for a quick cash grab, say, taking on a nightmare client who forces you to pivot your entire roadmap, you will destroy the very psychological utility that keeps you going.
Right. You basically trade your profitability for a toxic VC injection.
Exactly. So ensure that at least one major project this quarter is dedicated purely to the technical apparel design equivalent of your business.
Meaning the passion project.
Yes. Dedicate resources to the project that makes you feel uniquely competent and aligned with your original mission. Basically, don't trade your CSP19 score for a temporary cash bump.
Wow.
Because if your quality of life crashes, your resilience crashes, and the business will inevitably follow.
Optimize for the psychology, not just the spreadsheet. I love that. We took a study on 50-plus-year-old professionals and found the absolute secret to surviving the startup grind at literally any age.
It really proves that if we want to understand the modern founder, we have to look beyond the standard tech sector tropes and embrace data from unexpected places.
Absolutely. Okay, before we close out, we want to shift gears into some interactive self-reflection. We have 2 hyper-focused questions for you to mull over today as you get back to building the future.
All right, question number 1. If your startup's income stayed completely flat for the next 12 months, no massive hockey stick growth, just flat, would the autonomy and self-realization you are getting out of the daily work still make the journey worth it?
Oof, that requires some brutal honesty. Okay, question number 2. Where in your daily operations can you inject more personal control to boost your psychological quality of life today? What is one lever you can pull to feel like you own the process again?
If you can isolate those answers, you're going to have a much, much clearer roadmap for sustainable success.
But I want to leave you with one final provocative thought that we didn't even really touch on yet.
Oh, what's that?
If absolute autonomy and control are the scientifically proven drivers of founder happiness, what happens when you take Series A funding?
Oh, wow.
Think about it. The moment you give up board seats to venture capitalists, you are legally and structurally handing away the very autonomy that fuels your resilience.
You're right.
Are you building a business to be free, or are you just working tirelessly to become a stressed-out employee of your own company? Mull that over during your next pitch meeting.
That is a very dangerous and incredibly necessary question to ask yourself.
You are building the future, and today you are rewiring your brains to actually enjoy the process of doing it. If this deep dive unlocked a new level of thinking for you, or shifted how you view your daily grind, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel.
It really tells the algorithm to support this kind of deep, research-backed content.
It does. And most importantly, drop your answers to those 2 reflection questions in the comments below. We genuinely want to hear how you are auditing your autonomy.
Yeah, the most valuable insights often come from seeing how other founders tackle these exact same psychological hurdles. So go back to that dashboard we talked about at the very beginning. Keep tracking your revenue, keep watching your customer churn, but remember, the most vital dial on that entire dashboard is completely invisible to the spreadsheet. It's your autonomy, your control, and your self-realization. If that dial hits 0, the engine stops entirely. Keep that tank full, founders. We will see you on the next deep dive.